Alhamdulillah, we're back again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Before there was two, now there's three. MashaAllah, what's happening? Assalamu alaikum, brother friendly Muslim and servant of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam
Walaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
barakatuh. That's been a long time.
It seems like it's been forever. In the world
Yeah.
of AI, it's been about at least a good 2 years. But the topic today is AI. Will it change? Hang on. Will it change you? Question mark. Will it change you? That is an interesting topic. And for those that don't know, AI stands for artificial intelligence. Some have accused me of being an artificial intelligence.
For how long, Laura?
I'm a robot, and now we've come to discuss it, and talk about my programming. So, the disadvantages and the advantages of having an AI friendly Muslim will be discussed. And again, we've got our dear brother, Seven of Allah, here, who has some knowledge on it, who may have been part of my programming in the beginning. We don't know. That's top secret information and confidential information. But since you're here, brother, did you want to sort of give us a little bit of an introduction about the topic itself and just a bit of background?
Yes, inshallah. Bismillah. So, the subject was suggested by Brother Muhammad, and it's a very interesting and topic that is very now, right? So basically, what is AI? Because it covers a huge amount of different things. You might not think that is AI, but it is. So, will it change you? That's the question. But is it destructive or is it constructive? So, well, what we're trying to maybe talk about is that to get the opinion of the people who are going to join us about what do they think in their current life that AI has the effect. Is it good, constructive? Is it destructive? And then bring up some points of the dangers and the benefits. And I also, I think if Muhammad received the video I sent him, that we'll watch a
good question.
video.
Can you play it? Because if I play it, there won't be any sound. I think you have to do it, and then we can share it from your sound, your side. Inshallah.
I don't think I can because
let me send it to our beloved brother, friendly Muslim.
For this stream, I'd like to be just as brother AI, please, if you don't mind.
Well, you're programmed, friendly Muslim. You have no choice but to disobey.
Oh, okay. We do have Brother Mehdi who's just joined us as well. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Brother Mehdi.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for joining us, and you'll be also discussing the topic of AI.
Walaikum salam. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Yep, my AI receptors hear you clearly. Sorry, I just sent him away accidentally. It's my programming. I do apologize. I've got to get a tune up. Yeah, no, he fell out, unfortunately. But I'm sure he'll join back. So, brother, right?
Sorry, I just wanted to say that the video is basically an interview, and that will touch a little bit. So the questions asked, and within the video, we can pause and reflect or give our opinion on that answer. But it has the topic is the what AI has an effect in general, but also in Islam. So that is also very important for us to be aware of. So that's what I wanted to say.
Okay.
I'll leave it back to you.
As we're loading the video up and getting that up together, right now, how does AI operate within our lives at the moment? If you could sort of, for those who may not know, some were born in the 70s, where they used to use cans and string to communicate. For some of the audience that may not know, right now in 2023, what is AI and how is it operating within our lives?
Okay, so Bismillah. It basically it's too vast to basically cover what it is exactly, but let's try to describe it in the simple ways of people have AI in their hand for the most of the day. What is the purpose of AI? I want to first of all get your opinions about what you think the purpose is. Is it has it bad intentions? Does it have good intentions? Is it bad or a good agenda? And the AI is something that will be something that will be implemented in our society from today already till the future in a extreme way that we are not even aware of, yeah, I think it's just it's better if we take, for example, the questions asked on the video and talk about those subjects, because it's way too vast. Everyone sees it differently. I think Brother Mehdi.
Yes, salam alaikum. I think you guys can hear me now. Okay, I'm in sync, I think now, yeah?
Yes, Brother.
Oh, perfect.
So Brother Mehdi, let us know, because I think you are in the IT world yourself.
Alhamdulillah. I have a little bit of experience in specifically actually in this field, a little bit, not much. But yeah, if I put a little bit of a, let's say, preamble, a bit of a backdrop, so we know what we're talking about. But generally when we're saying artificial intelligence, or we're saying AI, we're talking about what's meant by this is it's software that mimics human cognitive behavior. So I'll repeat that again. It's software that mimics human cognitive behavior. And traditionally, this was seen as things that only humans could do. Things like decision making, analysis, whether that's linguistic analysis, language analysis, kinesthetic analysis. I can go into some of these a bit more deeply in a bit. But so what's so special here? Well, as I said, classically it was seen as, oh, hey, only humans are actually capable of actually making a decision. Obviously, that's not the case, because we've got software that, with some level of determination, we can, just like you talk to your Siri phone or your Android phone. When I say you here, it's a little bit generic. I'm not actually targeting anybody. I'm also not speaking about myself. Just the common trends at the moment is people, for example, speak to their phone and they say, hey, can you set a reminder for 5 o'clock? There is AI at play even there, even if not interactively, as you're thinking the AI is running on your machine. There is actually AI has been used to get to that result. So if you go just a little one step deeper now, and we say, okay, what's the composite of this? What are we talking about actually? So far we understand it's a software. Let's say one subset or one group of this AI, when people are referring to AI, and some of these terms that they become a bit synonymous, or too commonly they are used interchangeably. People don't actually know what do they mean actually. But a subset of AI, or a subcategory of that, is what's commonly referred to as machine learning. Before you can make any sort of decision, or before you can do anything, you have to have a model of some sort. And when they say machine learning, this is referring to that aspect of how do we gather enough of a model, whether that's a model about pictures, or whether that's a model about language, And what can we do with this? But first we need to have a coherent, well set out, a well meaningful set of data before we can do anything with it. So the machine learning aspect deals with trying to come up with some of this modeling or grouping it, categorizing, and so forth. Another subsection of this is, or another category of this is what they call deep learning. And I know Brother Mohammed mentioned he's a 70s child. I'm not too far away, but if you remember back in the day, there was like programs that played chess, for example. It's one thing you can take all of the model, you can build a model of a chess game as an analogy. A chess has it's an 8x8 board, 64 checkers, black and white. It's a board basically, and it composes of a set number of pieces, but it doesn't matter really what kind of, however you do that modeling of however many different games there are or have been, you're not really going to know how should you play it, right? But with some additional sort of algorithms and tricks, we can actually find, hey, actually this is how it's played, because the pawn always moves one move, etc., etc. So the deep learning is trying to come up with using the techniques behind these are also, if you're interested, it's things like neural networks, relatively recent on the scale of things, last discovered about 50s era, trying to mimic the behavior of the mind, how the mind works cellularly. You have neurons that interact. You don't quite know how do they interact, but each time they interact in a particular way, you always get the same result. So what scientists have done is they've tried to mimic a lot of this, falling under deep learning, trying to mimic some of this behavior, the behavior of neurons when we take this data that we have and correlate it in this sort of a model, neural model. That's how they extrapolate meaning out of that, and they can get a software to play chess very well. Then I'll come. There's just two left, and then hopefully I can wrap it up. But the other part of it, which I have some experience in directly, is called natural language processes or natural language processing. Depends, NLP, depends how you want to say it. And this deals with the linguistic aspect. So the big hot thing at the moment is ChatGPT, and those kind of softwares where it effectively seems like the software is actually talking or it's able to communicate with you. Obviously, it's not. There's just a vast amount of modeling machine learning, quote unquote. A vast amount of machine learning has taken place here, possibly with, definitely in this case with ChatGPT, with some deep learning to come about with some models that, given a set of sentences, it seems like the system has comprehension. As I said, not necessarily so, but it mimics it, right? So it seems like, it's pretty accurate. Most of the time it works. And the last section of the very last category, which I think, maybe I could have done it in this, but it wouldn't have made much sense if I started with robotics. And I think all of us, at least growing up, at least myself, the first thing you sort of envisage when you're talking about AI or you're thinking about AI is some autonomous system or some autonomous creature or entity or mechanism, however you want to call it, where it's able to autonomously behave or autonomously mimic or actually interact with the real world. So, the term robot itself in English derives from a fictional work. I believe it's a Czech author. I haven't read the book, but it's quite famous in the IT kind of realm. The book is called RUR, Rosemary's Universal Robots. And it's a tale of essentially a housewife that gets this robot that's all encompassing, all capable, helps her around the house, chores, etc. It just sounds wonderful, right? We're still quite far away from it. I'm sure our sisters would be very happy if there was a machine that could help out in that. Certainly, we're not as useful. But the origins, at least as I said, in English, comes from a fictional work, robotics. So it's quite interesting how, when you look at the history of this, a lot of it is fictionally sort of derived, that somebody thinking that it is possible, or somebody, putting it out. But I just thought I'll lay that out because it's a bit difficult today to like Brother Muhammad, like Brother Dawood was trying to say that it's a bit difficult to sort of say where is this not applied actually today. If I may approach it like that, it'll be quite hard to. I mean, if you have a phone in your pocket, just to use an analogy, it's very difficult to say that no, there isn't any sort of AI or AI is not at play here, or AI hasn't been used to get there. And certainly other things like ChatGPT, if you've used it, that's obviously very gimmicky. But some other things that I think I could, if I may just also get a couple more minutes to speak to the positives, let's say a little bit. So I think all of us have probably used.
Brother Mehdi, I'm sorry to
Yeah, go ahead.
interrupt you. You gave a very, very detailed and great definition of AI and different kind of AI that is existing and being developed. But what is the reason? Is the reason of the creation of AI? Is it for the making life for humanity easier, or is it contrary?
Right. Well, I mean, I think the very rationally to respond to that, I think it would depend on who is behind authoring that, right? It's a sharp instrument can be used for both malicious and positive intent, whether that's surgery or not using it lawfully. So it's very much analogous to AI in that sense. If I may just give one quick example. So as I was going to say, that all of us, I think, have used, let's say, some sort of translator. Obviously, that's not a replacement for a translator or transliterator, a human being. However, it does make it for most cases, for most rudimentary cases, especially for learners, especially for, I don't know, for myself, I don't speak Arabic, but I certainly use translators a lot for that. So it's here you could quite see it's quite positive actually, right? Because we don't all have access to the linguistic aspects. Certainly, the machine also doesn't have a deep sense of language, and it cannot do a full translation or transliteration of something important. But for words and for very short sentences, it's immensely helpful. So I mean, just to take that one example to your question around, well, the intent here is obviously to help out with translations. It is to facilitate access to language, which otherwise, well, what's the alternative? Yes, humans are the best, but they're not so accessible, unfortunately. So I don't know if that kind of addresses it a bit, Seven to Allah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for on that language aspect. I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
that's just
it's interesting. It's very, very interesting, and you broke it down into different aspects. And we've got some new guests joining us for the first time. Beth, are you there? Can you hear us?
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you nice and clear. Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, we actually started this topic initially regarding AI and so forth, and we've got other panelists who kind of agree to what you were kind of like telling me, how controversial, how scary it can be. What's your take on the whole situation, if you don't mind sharing briefly?
I think my take on AI, I think it's quite. I think they're drip feeding it. Remember the movie that we were talking about, the Tim movie on Netflix? I think that is very much something that will come to pass quite soon. I think probably in the next couple of years. I haven't done much research on the topic, to be fair, but I think it will start with things like, I think, what country is it that they've started to do microchips? Is it Poland? Not Poland.
Sweden, I think.
I think that's it, Sweden, where things will be controlled with they'll be able to control certain things like your bank accounts and things like that. I think that's the drip feeding, but I think it will increase as much to the Tim movie that I was explaining that you've seen, Mo. I think it will get to that level at some point. But I would like to hear everybody else's take on it so that I can yeah,
interesting. The Tim movie that me and Beth kind of like watched on Netflix was basically this lady who worked for this technology organization, and everybody was given this particular gift of this particular robot who looked real, of course, because it's a movie, but he could sense, and he was given attributes to have access to your bank account, to have access to your phone, to your watch, to monitor your heart rate, to even the vehicle, who can drive the vehicle, because everything was basically done by him, and how he kind of like felt people's emotions, and then he worked on those emotions due to his understanding. It was on Netflix. I think it was called Tim, Tim, and yeah, we were watching this, and yeah, I can see this happening maybe in the future, and how these like gadgets that we have can really kind of like overtake us and give information to other technologies or other companies, organizations, to what we're looking at, what we're reading, what likes we have, what dislikes we have, and they use this information to basically, kind of like force feed us or kind of like corrupt us in a sense. Take it away, guys. Feel free to chip in.
Well, I can tell you some things. The AI, as they call it, started off to help people, but the main developments is in the military. You got the what they call them. They've got them in tanks. They've got it in armored vehicles. They've got your drones, and all these can think for themselves. The only reason I know that is just of late I've been checking these kind of things out. Older you get, more you want to know about different things. And if they've got it in the military, it won't be long before they have it in Civvy Street. Because everything that the military have, it's like mobile phones. When I was a kid, never heard of. Satellite phones were never heard of, except for in the military. So the military develop it mainly to kill. But civilians, they want to help operations. I actually saw artificial intelligence doing an operation, a major operation in America. That was a couple of months ago. So it is something to well, another example, I got sent an email to join in this study of AIs. You can ask it a question and it will answer you, but I don't really understand how it actually answers. It's got to be programmed and at some point of its manufacture, but it's very scary what's for the generations to come. Not my generation, but my grandchildren and children, their generations. It's very scary. It's very scary when you start looking into it, of the military side of it. It's very frightening. That's my take on it, and I've got to go because it's still our time. Ashraf.
Okay, thank you.
Brother Mohammed, Brother Omar, thank you so much. I do totally agree with you that advanced technology and all these AI always start with the military, because they're always already 20 or 30 years in advance before it comes to the civilians. I agree with you on that point.
It's very frightening, but please excuse me because I've got to do my salah and I've got to take my medication, which is going to take me 20 minutes or more. Ashraf, can you put me in the background, please?
I think, so I was just going to say very quickly that
go on.
Brother Omar made a very good point actually regarding the origins, but he said a couple of words there which was actually very, very hard hitting. You know, the unknown aspect of it, I think, is probably the biggest driver of fear. It's quite ironic, actually, because the common thing that comes up is, oh, well, redundancies, for example. With a lot of these things, you know, you're thinking the first impact is onto human beings. We're already seeing this a little bit, that just forgetting the military for a moment. If you go into a lot of service or kiosk-based point of sales, you actually are met, Burger King, for example, right? There's a counter where you select your food, and then, you know, you actually go and get it from a human. But you know, it's quite funny because the word computer itself, I just want to call this out as well, that the word computer itself was traditionally referring to human computers, because there was only humans that could compute. So obviously the instrument that has replaced it initially was an ambition for mechanical computers, didn't quite work out. Electronics have taken over, and they can do the same, mimic the same behaviors of just basic addition, multiplication, arithmetics, the basis of things here on a very digital platform. And so obviously we reap the benefits of it. But you can kind of see that there was already the first wave of computerization, digital computerization. That was the whole intent, was to free up computers or humans from doing these things that they couldn't do so well anyway, because they're too slow or you need too many of them. So yeah, I just find that a very, very funny parallel, because you know, you do get a lot of fear for yeah, what's going to happen, or how is it going to be imposed on me? And I think a lot of that is driven more by lack of awareness or knowledge of how does the thing actually work. And to what Brother Mohammed was saying earlier on, what makes it worse, another you know, aggravator of fear, is that, well, I don't have any the data here, there's no sovereignty of data, of identity, and so where is this stuff actually going, or can it go somewhere else? And that obviously expedites this whole fear and being a bit, let's say, resistant or hostile to it. Yeah, but I'll just stop right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehdi. Beth, first of all, welcome to the stream.
Thank you.
I also watched the movie after I heard Brother Muhammad telling me that he watched it, and I wanted to. I'm curious to know what scared you, and what aspect of that is it, because it looks very human, or would it be less scary if it is just a squared box? Or like, what was the moment that scared you, that in the sense that to you personally, like if that would be here right now, what would be that fear?
I think my fear is how much control it has, and how much it can engage with me on a personal level. Like, for example, you were saying, if it was a box, I'm not someone who likes things like, you know, like Alexas, those speakers that you can speak to it and say, Alexa, play Jay-Z and Beyonce Crazy in Love, and it will start to play the song. Things like that. I feel like I'm quite a private person, so I feel like the fact that I can speak to something which isn't meant to speak back to me or understand what I'm saying, for it to understand me, I find that quite worrying. I also saw on Instagram, my brother showed me, there's like an AI Instagram where you can ask it any question and it will answer immediately. So say, for example, you wanted to find flights to Japan and hotels. The rate that it answers you back is very, very scary. So you can say, find me a flight to Japan and a hotel for the 17th of November. And the rate that it answers you back, it's like 0.1 seconds, for example. Or I just find it quite, it imposes, I feel like it imposes on your personal space. So So
And
That's an
privacy.
interesting point there, Bethany. So when it did that, but then how would you compare that to sort of like Google, for example? So then, like, if I do
because
voice
yeah,
activation on Google and ask for a
yeah.
search, and it comes
hmm
up with results, where do you feel like the difference would be?
The difference is because it finds, say for example, if you go onto Google and you search flights to Croatia, this will actually the AI. I think the AI on Instagram, it gives you the actual flight, if that makes sense, rather than because you would have to, when you search for flights, you have to put in the dates. For example, the date of departure, the date of return. Whereas I think the Instagram one, it will find you the flight for the date of departure and the date of return, if that makes sense. So it does it a lot quicker than the Google search.
Okay, so then sort of like anticipates what your answers could be. Like, okay, typically someone would go for like a week or two
hmm
weeks, or it would kind of it's trying to understand ahead of time what your sort of patterns are, etc. I mean, I don't know if that's relatable to like sort of cookies, also, like like or how much data is already being collected with things like Facebook and Google and all these other things, and is it
hmm
a sort of big data has been around for a while, where all this big data is being collected. And I think AI is possibly, and again, the brothers that are more technically astute could maybe confirm or deny that AI then is the child or the birthing of, or the result of all this big data that's being collected, and then these anticipation patterns of learning what the masses are kind of ordering. Because I know that when I think I saw a lecture or something, and um, the the lecturer had told all the students, I'm going to write something on the board, and then everybody talk about this subject for 5 minutes, and then see what comes up on your phone. And I think he was talking about like he wrote wedding and engagements basically. So everybody in the rooms just started talking about wedding and engagements without touching their phone. And then all of a sudden, when they went onto their Google searches, all things about weddings and engagements start popping up. So I don't know if that's part of the cookies process also, that I think maybe we've already been trained up to in a way. But again, the brothers with the more technical aspect, I don't know if that's a correct perspective that I've got on the situation or not.
Yeah, I think I would more or less agree with it. But I was just going to say, Beth, it's very interesting what you bring up, because in let's say in this field, what there's already been studies done on this, that if you, and I put a link into the chat, which is, that's what they refer to it as, the uncanny valley. Where when robotics or things like that resemble or even surpass, right? It's possible to surpass humans in the sense that you're a human, but then you know what I'm thinking, just using an analogy, or you know what I'm going to say because I've been saying it so many times. Then the sort of interfacing gets really tricky, because the first thing humans, they don't want to engage, or they get very resistant. They just don't like it. There's an emotional response unintended, because just like the way you're sensing, the machine is able to, or even the search engine, whatever it is, it's able to actually exceed your own ability to express what it is that you would like to express. And so they actually notch it down quite a bit. So they've actually realized this, and it's like, okay, if we want to make a general purpose AI, then it still needs to look, or a general purpose robot, it still needs to look like a robot. It can't in the end be too much like a human. But yeah, just coming back to what Friendly Muslim was saying as well, I think yeah, definitely on the larger scale of things, these techniques with actually analyzing large sets of data, which are there, not necessarily, it can also be anonymized, is what's the meaning you want to get out of it. So obviously, if you've got a dictionary or a catalog of 10,000 products, then you're looking for a match on those products. Like, what's the behavior? What is it that somebody's doing that can match these products? And those are the people who I'm going to push things out to. So that's done on. That's not done like quite directly in a lot of ways that people think that, hey, just because I mentioned umbrella, yeah, that could be. I mean, but if they did that, that's at least. I mean, I'm working mostly in Europe, but that in terms of a lot of a lot of the data laws that exist in a lot of countries, that'd be a violation. So, for example, if you did that in Singapore or somewhere like that, that's breach of law. In quite a lot of Europe, it's pretty much the same. So, but there is other ways of getting to the same point, right? If there is other things you're doing associated with weddings, and there is already that 6 degree of connection, whether that's on your Facebook or you just your general email contact list, and all of you similarly are doing things that align to patterns of behavior that what people typically do when they go to a wedding or they're thinking about a wedding, then it is able to then say, hey, maybe this is already a connected subset. It's at 6 degree. There is a relationship here. And it's funny how they're all, okay, they must all be planning to go to a wedding. So there is actually other data points that they use to get to that. And, it could be the same thing even for, you go to the GP, they take a lot of your medical conditions, and all of that is anonymized. Your name is taken out, or everything that identifies you, what they call personally identifiable information, PII. We anonymize it in such a way that it's not actually relatable to any human being or any particular location, but it is a human being still. And obviously then in a set like that, for example, let's say of, 50-something, 60-something million Brits, then, you're looking for obviously things like, hey, well, I wonder what's the common trend here as far as X goes, Y goes. Could we figure out which portion of these people are likely to get diabetes, etc., etc.? So there's a different determination there. Obviously, the data is there, maybe similarly anonymized, the same, but the objectives are vastly different. Here, we're not trying to. We're just trying to come up with predictive ways of knowing ahead of time or preventative causes, etc., 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 what might happen, and that's just based on the vast amount of data we have. Yep.
If we could, what I'd like to do, just while we're sort of getting some information together, if we're looking at, because we're looking at, constructive or destructive, and again, advantages and disadvantages. So, what would you say an advantage? If we could, what would be an advantage of AI? If we could just rattle off a few and maybe discuss those.
Is that a question to me? Yeah, from
yeah, or to the panel.
Maybe it's not a good choice, because I think I might be more of a. I think for me, to be honest, for me personally, it's like I was saying at the very beginning of the stream. It's neither constructive or destructive, very rationally, because it just depends on who's behind it, obviously, and then what's your objectives. But there's certainly more prospectus, and it should be just constructive, actually.
Bethany had a good point, brother, because the control aspect, whereas this particular technology can control, if you give it the opportunity, it can control your life, it can control the way you think, it can control what you do, and it can even, by the mood that you're in, can control the environment. For example, she mentioned, if you say to Alexis, play this type of music, it would play the music. But AI has this type of program that it can sense you by your, maybe like a wristwatch or a monitor that you may have, what kind of mood you're in, how your body is, your heartbeat and so forth. So it can basically run your life, and then you kind of don't have any control, because it knows how to read you. It knows you. I think that's the issue. I think Bethany had. Is that right, Beth? Am I right in that?
Yeah, I would say it's the control aspect. I was going to ask a question in terms of, in regards to when he was talking about the weddings, in the room. I believe that these devices, i.e. phones, iPads, I think they've got an element of like a listening a listening aspect to them, because I find that I could be talking about something, i.e. going to holiday to Cyprus, and all of a sudden, if I go onto Facebook, the adverts that it shows me are Cyprus or European holidays, and I find it quite. I feel like it imposes in my personal space quite a lot, as I keep saying. But I think it's very much the control aspect that it has. Like when we was watching Tim, he was able to advise her that she received an email, she read it to her, and then he also replied on her behalf, which I find quite bizarre, because how do you know what she wanted to respond to that particular email? And I think that's where it gets a bit bizarre and a bit crazy for me, with the Tim movie. But I think it's definitely much the control aspect. That's why I don't any type of Alexa device or sound bars or any type of watches. I know I have an iPhone. I think that's where it stops, to be fair. But yeah.
Very interesting. I wanted to first of all try to answer the question that Friendly Muslim brought up about the cookies, right? And the data. So data has been and is still and will be a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Data is just everything, because if there is no data, there is no AI. There's no technology, right? So the human person has to always be the person, has to be the one putting the data in for it to do whatever it has to do. The second thing is what you brought up about the classroom example, or Beth when she talked about that she opened Facebook and she was seeing whatever that she was talking about earlier. Well, it does listen to you, because if I don't know if you were aware that if you install an application, any application, Facebook or anything on your phone, it always asks you the permission for permission to access your media files and your sound and all these kind of things. And we basically, what we do is we have to approve, because or else we can't install the app. So it's basically, it doesn't give you a choice. But what if you open the terms and conditions of what you're giving them access to? Is, for example, Facebook, you give it access to open your camera without you knowing, turning it on, reading everything that's on your phone, pictures, and open your mic. Just listen. So you are giving it the permission. What is a positive thing is that in some governments, and Belgium is very, very strict in this, they have, I think, much higher privacy laws imposed on AI technology and data collection privacy, GDPR, that they can't use it in the sense for reasons of spy, or listening in or spying, and the only, for example, the only way that they are possible, that they're legally allowed to use it is for marketing. So when you talk about let's say dishwash soap or whatever, and then you go on your Facebook and then you just see ads, it hurt you. And these are the things that
Wait, bro, is that serious? Is that really serious? They can actually hear you.
Oh yeah. If you give it the permission.
Wow.
You can hear them without giving permission.
I'm going to delete it.
No. It's not like it's gonna. You don't have to think like there's like a million people in Facebook Facebook headquarters listening to every person's phone, because there's so many listeners. So everything is done by AI. But but yes, you are giving it the permission. It can open and turn on your camera whenever it wants because it can justify that. They just can't use it in legal matters, in court and everything. So yeah, it's scary, and there are a lot of ways, and the specialist on that is Mehdi, to protect yourself from making sure that you're as you can't totally be like anonymous or something online without having your data used, but to the extent of the possible, right? And the cookies that Friendly Muslim was talking about, they're not the only thing. That was the only thing. If it was that easy to just every time go to your settings and just delete the cookies, it's much more. It doesn't collect data.
Are we getting some feedback from behind, brother? Dawood?
Brother Mehdi, yeah, I think he's being
No.
cyber attacked, brother. I think he's, Facebook is listened in there, brother.
Yeah, no, we're getting a bit of echo. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it's from. Yeah, it was. See, they're listening. So yeah, and the fear is okay. It could be beneficial, like when you're talking about something and then it pops up on your social media. It could be helpful because it could be something that you were looking for and you might not have time to look for it, right? But what it is the fear of, for what else are they using it? Because
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah,
for
so
nothing that Huawei is banned from America, China, because on their Android phones, they used all that data for reasons that were hidden, and all these kind of things, right? So for what else are they using it? And then the last point I wanted to talk is what Brother Muhammad said is, like, for example, if you have the watch or you listen to music or something and it could detect your mood, that's just the start. That was just the beginning, because what it does now, it decides what mood it wants to make you. Okay, so by making what you see on social media and everything, the images, the kind of sounds that they use, and they want to make you and they play on the psychology of the person, because some sounds have been scientifically proven to unconsciously push people to buy.
Yeah.
And if, for example, if you see something like, just imagine if you watch a movie, right, and there is like a villain and he killed thousand people, but the movie makes it look like at the end you feel pity for him, right? So if a movie can do this, right, then imagine what social media can do. And what it's doing now, it's basically attacking. I'm not going to say attacking, but focusing on the youth, because their brain is forming at this stage, so they can make you and make you into anything they want. They want you to feel, believe, and engrave in itself, and that's the danger. It's because it's the unknown. You don't know what they're doing, but you also can't. It's also because we are lazy to look at the fine print, right? Because if you do open and you see what access you're giving them, right? Because they can't do it without your approval, you'd be shocked, literally. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say on my part from this.
And I would just add a couple of things to that. I think the example with probably, I think the easiest solution for if you want to protect yourself against these things, is abstention. It's quite simple, to be honest. To just use a quote from a semi-famous person in computing, he says, malicious technology with some benefits cannot be excused, and that's really what's at stake here. You know, there's certain gains you have from all of these things that you use, Facebook, etc. But unfortunately, that is a really bad example. Something like Facebook and all this associate umbrella ecosystem of things, whether that's I don't know, WhatsApp and Instagram and whatever else they own. So certainly in Europe, there's been a precedent very recently that they've been fined as well. I haven't been following it, but it's quite a huge sum actually. You know, in the millions, hundreds of millions of euros for data breach violations. So effectively doing what was expressed, you know, listening in when they shouldn't be listening in, whether at least not directly. That shouldn't be permitted. So obviously you have not consented to this kind of engagement. And to make it even worse, you're not even aware of it, because like Brother Seven of Allah was saying, you're not really even reading what is it that you're giving away. So yeah, I think you have to be very selective about what is the software you're using, and obviously abstain, because you know, I have this challenge actually with some of my family, to be honest, as well, where I opted out of Facebook, I think 2011 or something like that. But you know, it was more peer pressure that got me into building a profile in there, and after some time I realized I've also worked a bit in advertising. So the biggest danger at the moment in terms of computing and how you're getting tracked and some of the cookies we were saying is actually advertisers, because you know, they're trying to just like in the old days, I don't know if you guys remember, but especially in the UK, you used to have these marketing companies where they would send you lots of things by way of catalog and so forth, and obviously they would know about some of your purchase patterns as well, mainly because they've given you the catalog, and they could end-to-end correlate the outsending of the catalog to your purchase. But obviously you probably, if you knew about it, you wouldn't consent as well, right? But now imagine the same thing but being done like a million times faster, and the fact that you actually got a lot more time to be doing those things. You know, before you used to open up a catalog, you used to, you know, Argos catalog, whatever it was, you had to kind of really selectively find what you want, do a comparison, be really selective, because you needed to go there, you know, it was actually quite a good selective scheme, versus now you can just do that 10 times at least in a day, and you probably do. Again, when I say you, I don't mean anybody on this panel, just generally speaking. So the motives are the same for the companies, to sell more, to get more into your you know, trends and what you do. And obviously when you see something for free, where it's not obvious how a platform is making money, then you are obviously the product. It's quite simple. And if you're not there for an actual objective reason, like, no, actually it's just an account for me to I don't know, sell my woodcraft work, whatever it is. If it's not that, and it is you on there, well, you're the product, because you're putting the pictures of yourself, your etc. So what else could they commoditize on? And that's what, in essence, it comes down to a lot of this. How you choose to engage.
I'd like to insert something here. I very much doubt anybody here who's old enough to remember, but I'm going back about 30 or more years. I wish I was old enough. But there was a few cases in America where a rock group put in sublimate, so I don't know the term. They put messages in within the rock music.
Subliminal messaging, I think that's what you mean, Brother Omar. Yeah. Subliminal messaging, yeah.
That's the wording. So he was doing that then, and you look, and I'm talking over 30 years ago, probably longer. They even claim Michael Jackson did it. They was fined. They weren't fined like a couple of thousand. They were fined millions back then. But I I can't remember the actual figures and what it was about, but someone actually committed suicide, and it was taken into the American courts. That was the first one, and it was proved that they'd put messages in the songs, but it was done backwards or something. So long ago, I can't remember the whole story. But also, power in the world is not financial, it's knowledge. Knowledge is the biggest power. You go into a war, for example, if you haven't got any knowledge of war, you're going to lose. Start up a business, you've got to have knowledge or you're going to lose. But where this AI comes in, from what I read some months ago, you can actually get it to write out your essays, I believe. I could be totally wrong, but I'm sure I read it could do all these things.
Mhm.
I even downloaded an AI on my computer, but when I realized what it could do, it was unbelievable. So I deleted it. I removed it completely. It's has good benefits, but in my book, it's got a lot of bad benefits, a lot of bad things. Maybe because of my age. Because of my age, probably. I've lived around the world. I've seen atrocities. I've seen atrocities done to children, women, men, horrible things. But I just cannot trust electronic thing to take control. I like sci-fi movies, but you always see these AIs in these sci-fi movies. They take over control. The favorite one, Terminator 3, 4, or whatever, where they take over the world.
It just got worse with each Terminator. It just seemed to get worse.
Yes.
It didn't get any better. Brother, we do have this video that Brother Dawood wanted us to review, and again, from transitioning from AI, and we've discussed certain aspects. In particular, the video sort of outlines AI and Islam, and it's a warning. So what I'd like to do, we'll get to the video, and then we can start sort of dissecting it and seeing the different aspects of it. Let me just get that loaded up here, and we can get going.
Brother Friendly Muslim, if you could just open the, you can see that on the bar, there's like segments, right? And you can
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I can
because
see the
you
segment.
don't need, yeah, well, you can skip some parts because it stays, it starts.
Okay, well, let me just play the intro part of it, just so everyone gets an intro, and then we'll tell me the message, what part you want us to go to, maybe. Let me get it started though, just to get everyone an intro.
We've seen exactly how powerful AI can be, with systems such as ChatGPT being used to write up entire essays, complete school assignments, and even prepare Friday khutbah. Or image generation software that can create realistic images and videos based on prompts from your wildest imagination. Donald Trump as a Muslim.
Thank you very much.
Or even create for you a virtual studio. And of course, AI voice models that can be trained to replicate famous voices and mimic whatever sound you envision. Kanye West singing Nasheed.
Ya Habibi, ya Muhammad.
And the crazy part is this technology is making mammoth progressions by the day. But what does this mean for us as Muslims? Should we be scared? Is this a sign of an approaching apocalyptic doomsday? Or is this something that will pass over us silently and soon wither away? We sat down with one of the world's leading Muslim experts in AI, Dr. Walid Quddus, no stranger to Silicon Valley, and someone who is responsible for incorporating artificial intelligence into some of the world's biggest brands, such as Google and Uber. Someone who is responsible for pioneering Google Maps. We asked him all the difficult questions, and this is what took place. Is there a transhuman agenda at play, a movement to...
Was there anything in particular, brother, you wanted me to jump to? Or?
Before it starts, there's just gonna be the second piece segment is just gonna be an ad. So you can just go to the third.
Okay, so you want me to just jump to the third segment? So the third segment, what is AI? How difficult is it to authenticate AI? Can
go back a little bit?
How difficult is it to authenticate AI?
Yeah, the
that
beginning
one, yeah?
of that one.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
As well.
Given that AI at the moment can generate realistic images, text, video, and speech, how difficult is it to authenticate information? Is this something that we should be cautious about?
Yeah, I think it is. Actions by Russians trying to use these techniques. Imagine those techniques on steroids, right? Because now you can personalize it for every person. The detectability is difficult. So it's something we definitely have to pay attention to and hopefully regulate.
How do you feel like this will cause, in terms of the spread of information?
Yeah, it's a really difficult problem. And I think it's also because people have not yet learned, to differentiate, between artificial content and genuine content. And the content is designed to press people's buttons. And that leads to things like confirmation bias. So really, it's up to us to really check our sources. And it's not like that this is an un-Islamic thing. In Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu. So Allah's telling us that when news comes to you, make sure to take the time to verify that. And those forms of verification are getting more technically complicated, but it's the same basic principles.
From your experience, how far is AI from becoming sentient or conscious?
Yeah, well, scientists have struggled to define consciousness for a long time, and I don't think we have a good grip on it. The Quran says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. They ask you about the soul or the essence of consciousness. They say that knowledge is from the matters of my Lord. In other words, this type of thing is still not something that people can answer. There's also questions about whether the question is well formed. One of the early computer science pioneers said, asking if machines can think is like asking if submarines can swim. They're just so different that the question doesn't even make sense.
Will AI replace our friends? Will people stop?
So that was the question really there was authentication of AI. What are your brief thoughts on that? And then if you could just write in maybe the private chat what the next segment you would like me to jump to.
Yeah, well, that was shocking. Because then later on he will talk a little bit more about that. But how can you authenticate it, and do we authenticate? Because
sorry, if I may say something here, I've got a strong opinion here actually. I'm not sure if authenticity is actually a problem in itself, because if I may use the example of like forgeries with artworks, right? You have an original work which if you want to retain its authenticity, well, you just retain that one, right? There is just one source. There's only one Van Gogh. There's only one of that. But here, in fact, the key is in the ability to copy, or is the key is in the ability to redo the Van Gogh work just as good as a fraudster would, to fool the experts to say, yeah, this is the real deal, and you're like, no, but dude, this is a copy. Somebody's just repainted this. It's just a very professional artist. So in that sense, the objective of the technology is to be so authentic in its objective, whatever that is, that I'm not sure why it's a problem to say, oh, but is this human made or not? Well, if it is, does it actually change the outcome? Because if the outcome was, like you said, to come up with something malicious, like making people do things that they have not done, well, it succeeded, right? And it wouldn't be any different if a human did it, because he would do it so well that you would question, is this actually real? Did this person? But yet, through your confirmation and through your methods of endeavoring to prove whether it's authentic or not, you would maybe within reason you would figure out whether it's another human being that's copied something, so it hasn't. So in that sense, I don't see this as being a problem as such. If anything, the fact that it is difficult already is speaking to how well the technology is working. And I'll just stop there.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that you're right in that way, but if it comes to information, media, news, or things that happen, or information for education, it should be authentic, right? Because that's dangerous if it's giving you news that is not authentic.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, again, it's like, how do you establish that, right? Like, because just like another human being telling you that or giving you that information, you are giving there is an inherent sense of trust. You're coming with no suspicion. You're coming with the sense that, okay, is this something useful you're telling me, or is it something that I should actually verify? Is it of any value? And you proceed thereon. But you don't come with the mindset that you say, oh, machine or humans, I'm just going to be mistrustful, like we are in our current times, unfortunately. There is no really order or hierarchy as to who's telling me what, if it's an elder or if it's a young person or if it's a mentally handicapped person. And so in that sense, there is no, if there's no order to how it comes, you suspect all sources. And then in that sense, then yeah, surely AI is also suspect. But there's no reason if 2 + 2 = 4, or the machine, whether that's common opinion or whether it's fact, it derives that from human input. So it only knows about 4. Now, if it happens to say 5, it's because people think 5 in that context or in that locality. So actually, so in that sense, even though, I understand what you're saying, there's only here as well, it's the same thing. Are you expecting the common answer of 5, or are you expecting a factual answer of 4? Well, either way, what's driving it and the authenticity of it is not the AI that's the issue, it's the human behind it. But that's my take.
If we can, we've got about 20 minutes. We've got about 20 minutes left. So the next part of the video is. I was thinking the next part of. So the next part is how we'll change our relationships with people. Obviously, we know that there's
what you think is intriguing. It's good.
Just before you go, I've got a question. Is an AI self-aware, or will it become self-aware so it gains its own knowledge by itself? Brother Mehdi.
It's a very quick answer to that is no.
No.
Good.
Yes, because I think that actually there is I don't know if you have to give credit where it's due, but actually the works of Avicenna, the Islamic from 14th century, but his work on consciousness is very good actually, because everyone's, like he said, everyone doesn't know how to coin consciousness. Well, if you're going to the first premise of doing what you asked, can it actually learn by itself do anything? The first premise of that is consciousness, obviously. And what is consciousness? And Avicenna, he talks about this quite nicely. He says, what distinguishes like a rock from a human, or let's say any sentient animal or anything like that, is the ability to look outside in, is to be able to self-observe. And yeah, and obviously we're I don't think they'll ever get there.
Answered that.
Okay. So I'll press play on the next part.
Finding the need to get married and having human relationships.
Unfortunately, I do foresee a change on that front. In particular, marriage rates are plummeting across Western societies. Birth rates are plummeting across Western societies. And the cause of that essentially is the rise of pornography on the internet. Now, imagine that you take that as an example, and this is only one of the social implications, but imagine that, but really amp it up to 11, where you can use AI to craft an identity that is very tailored to your personal preferences and what you find interesting, whether that's through text or voice or images. And you can see that same unfortunate pattern of social damage that happened with pornography, but much amplified. And that's, I think, something that society will have to deal with. I think it's one of the concerns I do have for how AI will adversely affect the community. And unfortunately, we're already starting to see signs of that.
Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, who created ChatGPT, has said that the technology may pose a risk of extinction.
Yep.
As someone who's experienced in AI and as a Muslim, how would you respond to that?
How would you like to earn £1 million a year?
Skip this part. But yeah, what are your thoughts on relationships and how they're affected with AI? Just for the panel in general.
Well, I mean, you've got AI girlfriends now that have just come on the market, I think it's called, or AI boyfriends or something like that. So I heard. My AI was not looking for one. I'm just saying that there was something in the news that I heard. That there was something like that. Just saying. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? I mean, I don't think it's the biggest issue is the replacement in that sense, but it is more the what it's doing is basically making you less social in interaction with people. It automates everything for you to just stay home, and basically it doesn't necessarily like, for example, the example for if you, like in these times you have your friends inside your house with you or with your spouse or anything, and she's sitting right next to you, and instead of talking you're just texting her, right? Like, to this point that this is coming. So at that point I'm worried, yes, that will really advance, that people just don't need to communicate. People can just say whatever they want because no one can see them and they don't need to bear the consequences. So yeah, that's for me something worrying.
I can relate to that, because at one point my daughters were upstairs and they would send me a text. I'm down the stairs before they would come down the stairs until I put an end to it. But it's yeah, that is one serious problem with the mobiles. The amount of people I've nearly run over by them, just so glued with their heads down on their mobile phones and just walk. They're oblivious. It turns people oblivious to what is going on around them. So yeah, I can understand that.
Okay, I will thank you, panel, for the input there. Let me just move on to the next section. Will AI be the cause of human extinction?
Brother friendly Muslim, I think
causes of extinction, like climate change, and just society kind of falling apart and the family unit kind of being destroyed, which is what we're seeing now. This isn't the thing that gets me, really worried. The technology is still at its infancy, and Sam Altman has his own agenda. So I've been in Silicon Valley for 15 years now. And what you do is when you have a startup, you want to build a moat around it. You want to build barriers to entry to other people entering it. And so what you do is you get the government to do your dirty work for you, introduce regulations that you know how to meet that other people don't know how to meet. And that's just how business is played. So while I respect Sam Altman's technical abilities, it's also very important to understand that he has an agenda here that he is trying to pursue. And that's just what he's going to do as the CEO of OpenAI.
What are some potential uses of AI in the Islamic space that can actually contribute positively?
Yeah, I think I've seen some very interesting applications. I think one that really demonstrates the possibilities is Tartil, which is a mobile phone app that listens to you read Quran and tells you when you make a mistake. Historically, this has taken you sitting down with someone or finding someone to be your buddy, but this app makes it so much easier. So it's like a general tool that can be used for almost any purposes. The apps that can generate images can generate artistic images that encourage us to kind of really reflect if they're in the right hands with the right prompts. There are so many exciting possibilities here in terms of just every aspect of Islam.
MashaAllah.
So, brother, yeah, so that's an interesting little spin on it. But yeah, no. So, brother wanted me to go to 8:21 of that. So now the video is actually entering onto that. But that was an interesting, sort of understanding of where AI and Islam can go. But this was the part where you wanted me to skip to. So, brother, just tell me when to stop. But I'll press play and then just tell me when you would like me to stop. Yeah.
So, as an expert in AI, do you trust the information that comes out from these bots and programs?
No, I don't. I know that may sound counterintuitive to people, but I've spent a lot of time working with these bots firsthand, and I know that they have a problem with what's called hallucination. It's not just that they are ignorant, which means that they don't know, but they hallucinate. They don't know that they don't know. In other words, they can make stuff up, be 100% confident that it's correct.
They call that Jahl Murakkab in Arabic. When
Really?
you don't know that you don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, the big problem with AI is Jahl Murakkab, right?
Yes.
Nothing stops it from making up a hadith that doesn't exist, for example. And the current iterations of the technology have a problem called hallucination. They just make things up. So there are certain chatbots that if you ask them right now, do I need to wash my knees as part of wudu? We'll tell you, yes, you have to wash your knees as part of wudu. And so sometimes they'll make things up. And especially dangerous is they can be very confident that they're and wrong at the same time. So they won't tell you, I'm not sure. They will just give you a confident answer. So I think we have to kind of be very cautious about using AI in the religious space. I think there are uses. Imagine, right now searching Quran and Hadith is still very difficult because often we look for words, but words don't capture meaning. And one of the great things with these AI systems is that they capture meaning, or what's called semantic information. And that makes things like Hadith search and Quran search potentially much better. And that could also be a very awesome tool for scholars, but scholars have the wisdom to interpret and judge that.
So in the past decades, we've seen the problem that we've had with Sheikh Google. Are we going to have the same problem with Sheikh AI?
Welcome to the Data.
Yeah, so first of all, before going to the last...
Gotcha. So he ended on Sheikh Google, but you...
Yeah, that was this.
Sure,
that's
go ahead.
Part. So the first word answer that came out of his mouth was, this guy is basically in the Silicon Valley 15 years, one of the biggest influences in AI technology, and he asked him, do you trust AI? And he literally just, as you heard, said no. So that's basically shocking. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, it's shocking to me in some respects, but this is something that I was trying. I didn't explain myself right, but like he pointed out, he would make hadith itself, and it'd be so convincing that it's correct. That's a worry. That is a worry. That it's a machine, basically, I suppose. Yeah, but that was something which...
Don't forget to wash your knees in wudu then next time.
Just for all that. But yeah, there's a lot of good. I'm not saying everything is bad from it. There is a lot of good things that will come from it. But will it be beneficial for everybody, all humans, anything that's a sentient being? It's it's a little
good
bit
point there, bro.
It's questionable, but everything in life when it's to deal with technology at the present and the future, there will be always question: is it safe? Is it going to be all good for humanity? Oh, no, Allah knows at the end of the day.
Well, I think that the hallucinations was a good point. And then I think now the next part we're going to go to will also sort of talk about how biased is the AI language. So I'll just press play now.
ChatGPT, when it first came out, to explain the Palestinian conflict to a 10-year-old, and he gave me some sort of response saying that it's a very complex, difficult thing to sort of explain.
Yeah.
What are some of the dangers with this particular bias?
Yeah. So bias is a very real thing, right? These systems are not kind of made mysteriously, right? Like there are humans who make these systems, and there's two things to think about. One is the piece of software that they write, the algorithms, right? And then the other thing is that the data that they use to build the models. The models are the things that do the thinking, if you like. So imagine a programmer is sitting there in California. He has probably a Western liberal bias. He's not even aware of the bias, because that's one of the challenges with bias. And he's making choices about how the algorithm works and the data that they're using to train the algorithm, and goes, oh, this is good data, this is bad data. Even if he doesn't mean to introduce bias, bias is going to make its way in. And this is something that has been comprehensively proven, and especially the work of Timnit Gebru, who used to work at Google, and then when she published papers in this area, got fired, really demonstrates that this bias is a real thing. The good news is there are ways to reduce the bias. So you can either change the data that you use to train the model, or in some cases, you can change the personality of the software that comes and says, please, I want you to adopt an Islamic personality, an Islamic mindset. And in my own experiments, that's something that's actually worked surprisingly well.
We've seen the impact
Yeah,
of
we can
social
stop
media
there,
on
for-
our attention spans.
Yeah.
So maybe you could share the link in the chat so that if someone wants to watch the complete thing. But what's your opinion or thoughts about that, the bias? Because he does say that it doesn't create everything by itself, right? Because if you tell that AI to use an Islamic way, so or a way without bias, then it will do that because it just follows the orders. And it's you can try it at home yourself online, and you'll see that there's a lot of bias that's been put in there. So it is beneficial at one hand, but then there's an agenda. Who is those people who putting these biases in there, and how powerful is it? So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I'm really honest, Brother Servant of Allah, I'm not sure if these biases are anything more than the reflection of the data it's getting in. That is to say, if you have a society that's inherently left-footed or right-footed, then the data will only reflect that. It's not like it itself has got an intent to get something nefarious out, or negative or positive. So, but yes, if your intent is to, is to look for those kind of patterns, then yes, surely you can make the machine do nefarious things. But what I'm trying to say is when the similar techniques are applied, similar methods are applied, if the data is tainted or corrupted, it has that bias, all the machine will do is it will go along those lines. And what's very interesting is I think all of us to some degree have done some interactions with ChatGPT. The hallucination that the brother was talking about in the video, it's mainly, this is not a complete language as you're thinking. So the machine doesn't have full language and linguistic capacity, mainly because, however you want to take it, the primary function of language is thought. It's made for thought, not for communication. Communication is a tertiary, ancillary part of that. So it's like a third part. But if you're communicating not well, then the machine will also adapt, and it will not talk well. If you only use a subset of the overall language, which is not positive, it's negative, then in that sense, the machine will just mimic that. And what's very interesting is most of the time when you're interacting with these systems, you can get an immediate sense of its limitations and its inability at language, because it, like the brother was saying, it hallucinates. Why? Because even if your sentence doesn't make any sense, or it requires further points of clarity. So, one of the ones one of the examples I like to use, which is not my own, but it's from a famous linguist called Chomsky. He says, I just use, paraphrase a bit, but if I was to say to you, or rather, are eagles that are flying swimming? Right? You can articulate it like that, but it doesn't kind of make sense. And from a human kind of a normal, natively versed native English speaker would in most cases would strive for clarity and comprehension. So they would ask you like, hey, are you using this analogous as to eagles that are flying, it's like swimming? Or are you asking actually, are eagles eagles capable of flying also capable of swimming? It never actually asks you a follow-up question, right? Saying, actually, hey, what do you mean? Then it would just, paraphrase or spout out a whole load of nonsense around eagles flying or whatever it is that you've asked. But it will never make that effort to say, hey, actually, your sentence doesn't make sense. Let me make. So because it's designed in that form to give you an output, it's made a prediction. Its prediction is actually you're talking about the subject of scientifically, whatever it's been trained in. And the other part, I'll just finish off with this. The other part that's really interesting with a lot of these texts is that text-based, linguistic-based, language-based things is that all of this Chat GPT. If you were to train it with all of the available information today, that's all of the events till today. It's just basic logic, right? So everything that's happened up until today, if you could capture it, which you can't, but if you could, you provide it to the machine, it has full comprehension of everything till today. What happens tomorrow, actually? Because if there is a new set of any event or languages tomorrow, then it's not like you can just, like what you do with a file, you open it and you copy paste just that section. It actually gets very complicated. You have to retrain the whole model. So that is to say, you have to reinsert this new bit of small information, which is just today's over the course of the last 10 years, whatever you've had. So it becomes really, really intense, and you quickly realize that, these technologies have got their limits. They've got they're very limited, actually, and they've got their limits. And how far you can trust them is just inherent. How much data do you have in there? And would you trust it with your life? Certainly not. I don't think so.
Yeah, I just want to ask.
Brother, yes, so we're on our final points, brothers.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to conclude in a time, and some of us have to go, and we've been going for near enough 2 hours and a bit now.
No problem. Friendly Muslim, sorry.
Final points.
Just
Yeah,
wanted
sorry,
to. Sorry, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to ask what Sister Beth, thought about what she saw.
Sister Beth, are you still with us, or maybe she stepped away?
Yeah, I think she may not be with us, brothers. So if we could just get our final points of based on, and again, I was going to go to everybody on the panel and have a final point or final thoughts, basically, if we could. So, Brother Omar, I'll start with you. AI, is it a constructive thing or a destructive thing in your opinion?
For the future, it's possibly the thing that will run the world. And destructive mankind is destructive, and if it's put into the AI, it's going to destroy life. Like the brother said, it's all what is plugged into it, what information it is given. And like I said, just look at the past 100 years. There isn't a year that has gone by where there isn't a war or destructive way of mankind. Maybe it'll stop this happening, or maybe it'll contribute to it. I would imagine it'll contribute to it, because mankind, that's where mankind is. We like to destroy ourselves. That's all I've got to say.
No, thank you, Jazakallah here, brother. Brother Mehdi, your thoughts are a constructive or destructive thing based on everything that you've seen?
Yeah, sure. I think I think the focus has to be long term on the constructive aspect. It has to be, especially from I think from an Islamic perspective. I think that we should have a sense of demand for how we expect these technologies to do what it is we think is correct to be doing or focusing on. I think if you are in doubts as to how you are interfacing with this technology, so the brother in the video, he said that he doesn't trust he wouldn't trust the technology, right? He wouldn't trust AI. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, if you've driven a modern car, you have anti-collision, right? It's actually the last thing. It waits for you to stop, but it's preemptively making continually. It's doing analysis and calculations to figure out, if you don't do that, when to intervene. And that is surely like a good thing. We should demand more things like that. Not entertainment in my car. I don't need that. Surveillance, security. These are just actually beneficial things that should be available, just taking the car as an example. So I think we have to be more demanding. We have to stay on point as to, what is the benefits of the technology? How can we further accelerate that, or how can we better focus on that? And just like the call to prayer, right? If the technology has got that aspect of purification, if it has that aspect of deliverance of better goodness overall, right? As commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we should surely have all of these means and technologies focus on that, and not just be a passive observers like, hey, the technology is nefarious, negative. It's like I said at the beginning, it's just like the sharp instrument. You can use it for surgery, or you can use it for something not permitted. Thank you.
Jazakallah here, brother. Beth, if you're there, you are muted, so I don't know if I'll try and unmute you.
I'm still here.
Oh, great. So your final thoughts basically on AI, constructive or destructive?
I think destructive. I think in a few years to come, I think it will get a lot worse. And I think we will end up at a stage where we will come close to Tim at some point. Hopefully not, but I hope. Bear with me just 1 second. I hope. Let me just run down. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, I think in time to come we'll end up as close to Tim. I think, for me, it says, obviously from a religious perspective, it says in the last days, knowledge shall increase. And I believe that we will see things that will be uncomprehendable to the human mind at some point, which become very scary. So it'll be interesting to probably rekindle this topic in about 2 years' time, or in a year's time, to see how much it has increased. But I think we're heading down a very destructive route with the AI.
Gotcha. Thank you for joining us, and your input is joined, and I look forward to you joining us again on other topics in the future. Definitely, if you're available, we'd love to have you. Brother Dawood, very quickly, your final thoughts on constructive or destructive?
Yes, inshallah. Very short. Both. More constructive than destructive, Unfortunately, more constructive for the first world countries, and the biggest destructive is going to be the impact on the third world countries. So that's my answer.
Thank you so much, Brother Popcorn. Your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, echo what Brother Dawood just said. I totally agree. You can have a positive and negative attributes and effects on society, but I think here, living in the West, I think is going to be more destructive. If other countries are less well off, I think it can be constructive there until they catch up. So yeah, it's a very huge topic and has been very interesting, especially myself and our beloved brother Muhammad Omar, who was born in the 70s or early 70s. This is way above our head and above our pay scale. So it's I'm just happy having 2 cups and a string, and I'm just happy with that. Or a pigeon. Just throw a pigeon with a letter written around his leg and send the pigeon up.
I'll remember that next time you want to WhatsApp me, bro. he might change his mind on that one. But brothers and sisters and our beloved panel, thank you so much for joining us. It was a new topic as such to bring in. We'll be throwing in these types of streams in the future also. And again, it's been a joy to have a mix of panel and have all these different sort of inputs and reflection. But keep it here, Mr. DJ. Get ready for that button. But brothers and sisters, look out for the community posts, the Just Giving, and all the content that's going to be coming up in the coming days, weeks, and months, inshallah. Until the next time, from the panel, from myself, Friendly Muslim, Cov FF, Consider This TV. Assalamu alaikum wa
rahmatullahi. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Thanks, Beth. Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
MashaAllah.